All right, let's get into the DevSecOps thinking. So it starts with the DevOps environment. And this is a highly shrunken technical blueprint for the structure and flow of a DevOps environment that happens to be implemented with Azure DevOps services and Octopus Deploy and Redgate, which are really popular tools. But ultimately, you could implement it with anything: TeamCity, GitHub Actions. It just whatever. The tools are secondary. The process is primary. And look at the box of scenarios. Your DevOps environment needs to, at a minimum, have the ability to execute these scenarios. And so, you need to have starting with continuous integration, which is a 3-stage process. A lot of people implement a integration build with the team, but they don't have a private build yet for the individual developer workstation. So the private build is very, very important. It's very, very important that every software engineer on the team be able to run the private build locally with no network connectivity whatsoever, and have it run all the unit tests and the component level integration tests and build the database locally and make sure that the changes locally are even ready to be shared with the team. And then, of course, the integration build is the second stage of continuous integration. And then the first deployment is the third stage of continuous integration, where we deploy to a real environment and then run full system tests. We do encounter a lot of clients that have only implemented 1 or 2 of the phases of continuous integration. And so we go all the way back to the 2006 book that literally is titled Continuous Integration. And then there was a sequel, not a sequel, but a follow-on book in 2009 called Continuous Delivery that cited the book on continuous integration. And so if you've never heard of that book, never read that book, or your team hasn't, just go get the book. I mean, at this point, it's 16 years old, but it defines what continuous integration is. And those 3 stages are very, very important. You want to make sure that you have all 3 stages of continuous integration in your DevOps environment. And then when it comes to deploying, you want to make sure that you have your minimum of 3 environments to deploy to. And of course, the first one is that continuous integration based environment. I like to call it the TDD environment because it runs full system acceptance tests. And TDD invokes the name test-driven development, and we are running automated tests there. That type of environment, no humans are really allowed on it. There's no point, because the automation is deploying an application, however many deployed components that application has, starting it all up, running the test suite, and then throwing it all away. So no people are really using that for anything. It's just for the automation. It's for that third stage of continuous integration. And then, of course, you need your production environment. You need at least one of those. And then backing off from production, you need some environment to do manual testing. The most common name is UAT, user acceptance testing. But you need at least one environment to do manual testing. A lot of companies have multiple different environments with all kinds of different names for manual testing. They have manual testing environments named dev, test, UAT, staging, sit, dit. There's all kinds of names for environments where humans check out something on the software. Those are manual test environments. So obviously you need at least one of those. A lot of companies like to have multiple, and that's great. For all of these 3 categories of environments, you need at least one of each to have a complete DevOps environment. And so we're going to talk about this general structure and how to integrate security concerns with a lot of these areas. Okay. Now, this, by the way, from a resource perspective, this poster, this is just the top third of this DevOps architecture poster. This is actually the full poster. Obviously, you can't read all the text, but if you are interested in a high resolution copy of this full DevOps architecture poster, then just let us know. This one, you can click a link and just download it. And later, if you want a team member to have it, just send me an email again, and we'll make sure to get it to you. But this is high resolution. It's meant to be printed at a print shop on 2 foot wide by 3 foot tall poster paper. A lot of people like to do it on the foam board so it stands up on its own, or put it on a wall of a team room, things like that. All right. So that's the DevOps environment, the general structure that we're working with. And from a training perspective, you want to make sure that everybody on your team at least has some baseline knowledge. I really like KnowBe4 as a training company. Just look them up. They have curriculum. They will actually attempt to do social engineering against the people on your team, and then report to everybody who's been hacked, kind of like in a simulated attack. I mean, they'll send creative emails, enticing people to click, impersonating people in the company. They'll do what the real attackers are doing, and so it helps everybody on the team understand the tactics that are out there and be educated and be watchful for those. So I really like the KnowBe4 training. Also, just a great resource to be aware of is staysafeonline.org. And by the way, this is for your team, this is for your family, this is for everybody. And it's from the National Cybersecurity Alliance. There's a lot of information there. Everybody should just know what's available through the National Cybersecurity Alliance. October tends to be National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So, coming up in October this fall, it's a great time to integrate some month-themed training. But everyone needs to realize that attacks are always happening. It never stops, regardless of what type of attacks. They're always happening. And anyone who's worked related to and had access to firewall logs, you can see that people, whether they be real people or a ton of just automated bots on the internet, are constantly trying to get into various things. And so you just need to be aware of it. But before we get into the team-based security controls, individuals must be aware of what's going on. And so that's why it's so important to have individual security training. And whether again, this is not just for developers, but even for software users, because anyone who uses software that exposes company sensitive data is going to be a target. And if their user account, if their access gets compromised, then the data that they have access to becomes compromised. And so from a software feature perspective, you really don't want to I'll just throw out one example. One example that I would consider naive is if you have a software application where you literally don't know if there is somebody just trying to do a brute force password attack, whether it's an automated bot or a real person that's just over and over putting in a known username or known email address, and they're just guessing passwords all day long. And so you see in some software, if you try with a bad password 3 times in a row, it locks out the account for some period of time. That's one of the mitigations. But if you were to be honest with yourself and think, okay, every one of our applications, do I know for a fact that somebody can't just sit there all day trying to guess passwords without us knowing? Well, that's a good discussion to have. All right, that's an example.